Hey guys, hope you're all doing well. This is Rex Blazer 1 doing something that's rather unconventional for me. Me giving my own thoughts regarding the Transformers comic book stories under IDW Publishing. While I admit that they've grown a rather notable fan base over the years, IDW Publishing's take on the Transformers franchise is a bit of a mixed bag for me. On the one hand, they've come up with some rather interesting ideas and takes on the Transformers mythos and lore, but on the other, not all of those ideas work for me. So with that in mind, I've decided to put this out there and give my own feelings on what works and doesn't work for me about IDW's version of Transformers. I recognize that IDW is made for an older audience than Transformers is normally marketed towards, but some parts of it just rub me the wrong way. Bear in mind that this is just my opinion, and you're free to agree or disagree, but this is just how I feel about it. Also, this contains spoilers, so if you haven't read IDW's version of Transformers but would like to, stop now, there's no turning back. If you're still with me, here goes. Dislikes. Yeah, I'm getting this out of the way, in no particular order. 1. Adaptational villainy. They have a tendency of taking characters from past incarnations of Transformers that were previously good guys and turning them into, well, villains. Examples include, but are not limited to, A. Starsaber, no relation to the sword of the same name. Japanese Transformers Victory cartoon. Squeaky clean hero, not unlike Optimus Prime, who was a good leader to his men and even adopted a human boy as his son. IDW Publishing, religious fanatic hell-bent on killing anyone who doesn't conform to his beliefs, and at one point called for an atheist holocaust, something that made him unpopular with other religious folk. B. Rat Trap, Beast Wars / Beast Machines cartoon. Short dude with a sassy personality who you could still count on to have your back when the chips were down. IDW Publishing, selfish, amoral backstabber of ambiguous affiliation who plays the Starscream for Starscream. C. Spike Witwicky, Generation 1 cartoon, a straight-up good guy who aids the Autobots. IDW Publishing, a selfish jerk who has a hate-on for all Transformers and sees himself as a lone hero fighting against an invading force when really he's just a punk. 2. Humans universally hating the Transformers. Admittedly, some events in the IDW Transformers continuity allow this to make some degree of sense, but it's still unrealistic to have all the humans hate the Transformers. In the real world, people have all kinds of reactions to things, and it's never a one-sided reaction. I think this, the previous point, and a couple others on this list can be chalked up to a few things. A. IDW trying to copy Ultimate Marvel's idea of realistic equals everyone's a mistrustful, disrespectful jerk. B. The fandom's general dislike of human characters no matter how they're done. The thing is, the humans in most versions were only annoying because they took time away from the robots, not that they were all assholes. 3. The bastardization of the Prime lineage. Basically, IDW has made it so that all of the Primes that came before Optimus, the 13 original Primes being mostly unclear at this point, were all corrupt and militant. I mean, I could understand if maybe 1 or 2 of them were bad and the others had to work hard to clean up their messes, but having all the Primes that came before Optimus be corrupt and militant is just convoluted. Sure, they build a story on it in later issues, but more often than not, it just makes me end up disliking or hating some characters who I'm supposed to be invested in. I mean, seriously, why is Optimus the only good Prime in IDW's Hasbroverse? 4. Neutrals. It was revealed a while back that not all Cybertronians took sides during the Autobot-Decepticon War, and the majority of these neutrals hold hostile attitudes towards both Decepticon and Autobot alike, blaming both factions as a whole for Cybertron becoming a wreck due to the war. In some cases, this is understandable, but the neutrals come across as narrow-minded jackasses who did nothing to save their planet and blame others for its state, and they refuse to see the other side of things. I know there are people like this in the real world, but that doesn't mean I have to like it. 5. Pyrrhic victories. A lot of the time, when the main good guys try to make a difference or change things for the better, they end up either failing or everything they touch turns to ash. However, they seem to be toning this down a bit, but there's still some of it here and there, especially in the stories written by John Continuity Nut Barber. 6. I just tend to get a feeling of IDW being dark and edgy for the sake of being dark and edgy, as well as just changing things for the sake of it. This encompasses all of the previous points as well. 7. Mythology of ambiguous truth. Originally, Simon Furman was in charge of constructing the IDW Transformers universe, and he said that there would be no Primus or Unicron in it. After Furman was removed as the chief architect of this fictional universe, Transformer religion was addressed more and more, with a new version of the Primus story as well, but unlike previous incarnations, it's unclear if the religions brought up in this universe are correct. Admittedly, it is treated more like a real-world religion, where the gods and supernatural beings have followers, non-believers, and people who interpret the stories about them in a wide variety of ways, but said gods and supernatural beings don't exactly put in appearances that say, "Yes, I'm real, I exist." At least, not in ways that are beyond the shadow of a doubt. Anyway, before, in other incarnations, Transformers tended to go the all myths are true route, and I actually like that, but they don't seem to be doing that this time. In fact, particularly in the stories written by James Roberts, he tends to do this shtick. The Transformers are about to meet someone or something that is supposedly divine or supernatural, only for that person or thing to be a big letdown in that regard. The problem is, he's got no real excuse for that, as supernatural elements are confirmed to be a real thing in the IDW Hasbroverse. Examples include, but are not limited to, A. Rom the Space Knight's enemies, the Dire Wraiths, who are a race of shape-shifting, parasitic space wizards. B. The Infestation series, where the universe was invaded by the Lovecraftian Elder Gods. C. The Talisman and the weird Dire Wraith-esque creatures featured in Revolutionaries. D. The whole robot mummy fiasco. And E. Astro Train's severed head speaking in some weird unknown tongue. However, all of that being said, likes. 1. World building. This is a big one for me, as the writers take different elements from varying incarnations of the Transformers franchise and put them together to create something new and memorable, adding to the lore of the universe they've built and creating an interesting experience for all. This has been done excellently in such books as Robots in Disguise / Optimus Prime, More Than Meets the Eye / Lost Light, Till All Are One, and the Windblade series. As an aspiring writer with autism myself, I tend to indulge in the exercise of world building in order to see how these fictional worlds can work, so this is something that I can appreciate. 2. Exploring life after the Autobot-Decepticon war has ended. We see characters question themselves about what to do now that the war is over, and it helps to create new and interesting stories when done well, such as the stories with the Scavengers and the Dinobots. 3. Expanding on Transformer culture. This probably should be part of the world-building point, but I like some of the new additions to what kind of culture the Transformers have. They have their own customs, languages, and ways of doing things. While I may not like how angsty Barber tends to get with his stories, he and Margaret Scott have done some rather interesting work with expanding on the culture that has me intrigued and wanting to see more. 4. The Decepticon Justice Division, or DJD for short. These guys make for excellent villains, having personalities while at the same time reminding the readers that they're still murderous psychopaths. They're the real Decepticon fanatics, hunting down any cons who've defected, deserted, or been captured, and kill them in the most exaggerated way possible to make an example of them. And if the rumors about them are to be believed, they always find their targets. It's refreshing to have characters who are still clearly bad guys after being pounded upon by constant moral ambiguity. They're basically the kind of bad guys you love to hate. 5. Galvatron. This version of the Decepticon leader occupies a unique position in that he's a completely separate character from Megatron and has no apparent connection to Unicron, who has yet to appear or even be mentioned. He's still a schemer and has a bit of charisma to boot, representing unpredictability in a way that's not easy to write down in a single sentence. He's everything that the Generation 1 Galvatron had the potential to be if he hadn't suffered brain damage. Plus, being a separate character from Megatron, he's an interesting divergence from the usual formula where Megs gets powered up and changes names. 6. More Than Meets the Eye. It plays a bit like a sitcom where hijinks ensue, but it's still a fun read, and the hero's victories actually mean something this time around. Despite some problems I have with some parts of it, I do agree that it's no wonder this was IDW's most popular Transformers title, and it's now being rebranded under the name Lost Light. My hope is that James Roberts decides to tone down the political stuff, particularly the parts that like to blame societal problems on religious nuts in later issues and storylines, and that he decides to not do his usual narrative fake-out for when it comes to supernatural stuff. 7. Despite all of its flaws, IDW somehow keeps drawing me back for more to see where it all goes. This can be both a good thing and a bad thing, but it has my attention, and it's hard to ignore. I do hope that it can lighten up some of the darker and dramatic moments in the future and actually give us something that's good for everybody. You have my attention, IDW Publishing, and I both hate and respect you for it. Well, that was my thoughts on IDW Publishing's Transformers comics. Please leave your thoughts and feelings about it in the comments below. Do you agree or disagree? Have a most pleasant day, and I'll see you later. Shooter,